A primary school in Melbourne's north has been closed down after a grade 5 student tested positive to coronavirus. Reporter Stephanie Ferrier has more from Melbourne.
Well, today we heard from State's Health Minister Jenny Mlikota, and she says that there have been 9 new cases detected in Victoria in the past 24 hours. One of those, as you mentioned, is a grade 5 student at Strathmore Primary School in Melbourne's north. Now, she says that the school was only notified late last night and acted immediately to get in contact with parents to let them know that that school is now closed, while health authorities go in and try to undertake a deep clean, as well as very hurriedly try to ascertain the close contacts of this grade 5 student. We still don't know what this student's gender is, but they're obviously going to be looking at this particular student's classmates as well as their teachers to see who might need to be isolated as a result of this positive test. Now, the other cases are 2 more cases that are linked to a previously diagnosed patient at Monash Health. These are 2 household contacts. We also know that there is 1 new case linked to an extended family cluster in Coburg, and this particular case is now linked to 12 individuals testing positive. You'll remember that yesterday there were 4 children that were affected as a result of this particular extended cluster, which really comes from the northern and southeastern suburbs. So we're talking Coburg, Broadmeadows, down in Pakenham, and now there is another suburb that has been affected in terms of this household, which is Reservoir in Melbourne's north.
And Steph, people in other states and territories around Australia might be looking at what's happening in Victoria and think, geez, they've got more to deal with than we do. It's tiny compared to what's happening in overseas countries, but it's more than what's happening in other states and territories. But yeah, authorities there in Victoria are pretty confident that they will be able to proceed with the easing of restrictions as planned. We heard kind of Brett Sutton saying that yesterday. And it sounds like Jenny Mlikota is continuing with that line today.
Yes, they still say that they're really confident at this stage that they do have this virus in hand in terms of community transmissions. That's the big issue that obviously all state health authorities are looking at. And in fact, what we're seeing is that the number of community transmissions, which is when they cannot pinpoint a source at all for the infection, they have remained very low. Now, we do have this cluster, which is the extended family cluster, which is up to 12. And, you know, that accounted for 7 or so of those cases yesterday. So you're talking about quite a few of them already being linked to known household contacts. And hopefully, obviously, they are all in quarantine as a result of that first case testing positive, which means that with any luck, we should be able to keep a handle on them. And the health department and the government are saying they are still going ahead with the easing of these restrictions as of next Monday and looking further ahead to further restrictions being eased in July.
So Steph Ferrier reporting there from Melbourne. So Victoria, Queensland and New South Wales have reported their numbers for today. Victoria 9 cases, but the officials there are confident they're on top of the outbreaks where they are at the moment. New South Wales today 3 new cases, but all of those are people in hotel quarantine, so no community transmission in New South Wales. It's had a really good run over the past couple of weeks. There's been 2 cases of possible community transmission. But generally done fairly well in terms of limiting the spread. And Queensland, no new cases today. We're still waiting on the other states and territories to report. Coronavirus, bushfires and the drought have taken a heavy toll on the New South Wales economy. The state's treasurer is today outlining what he calls a challenging set of numbers. Here's reporter Jesse Dorset.
The New South Wales budget has been delayed because of coronavirus, so the State Treasurer, Dominic Perrottet, will today instead deliver an economic update to Parliament here in Sydney. He'll tell the Parliament that the state's economy is expected to contract by 10% this financial year, and the state's revenue is expected to fall by $20.3 billion across 5 years. Of course, the knock-on effect of that is fewer jobs, and the unemployment rate is tipped to rise from 6% to 7.75%. We know 220,000 people lost their jobs in New South Wales in April. That number is expected to rise to 275,000 by the end of the June quarter. Dominic Perrottet says the government's focus is shifting from response to recovery, and part of that is an easing of restrictions, including on public transport. The government this morning announced more commuters can catch public transport from July. 68 people can travel on a train carriage, 23 on a bus and 450 on a ferry. Here's the New South Wales Premier, Gladys Berejiklian.
If you see a green dot, it is safe to sit or stand there, and that new configuration will be available from 1 July. Now, this is pleasing for those people who work in places like the CBD or people who do rely on public transport. We're still encouraging people to travel outside the peak where possible, but now we will have extra capacity in the peak. I don't know anywhere else in the world which has those indicators for the customers, but also the apps and the on-demand services that let people know what is happening on their particular service in real time. This is world leading. I'm incredibly proud of what New South Wales has done.
From almost 8,000 coronavirus tests, 3 new cases were detected in New South Wales. All are returned travellers in hotel quarantine.
Jesse Dorset reporting there. Pressure is growing for several states to set a firm date to reopen their borders. At this stage, Queensland looks set to welcome back interstate visitors from July the 10th. But the head of the Cairns Chamber of Commerce, Mlikota, says it could take at least 5 years for tourist numbers to return to pre-COVID levels.
Cairns was the first area that went into this crisis. We lost flights taking live seafood to China back in early January. We lost all the Chinese visitors during the Chinese New Year. So we started hurting really fast and really quickly. And then when Scott Morrison shut the country, as he did the right thing on the 23rd of March, that just hurt and crippled the industry up here hugely. We've gone from our international flights have dropped 100%, and our domestic flights have dropped about 96%. So we're really hurting. We need people jumping on planes to come and see us, and obviously we need our borders open so that the rest of Australia can come and see us in the short term as well. Far North Queensland, well, we have about 54% of our tourists come in on our airlines, and a lot of those are coming from out of our state. So we need the borders open, and we have been putting Anastasia Palaszczuk and her government under pressure, as has all the other membership bodies up here in Far North Queensland. Open the borders, let the people come. She's talking about opening the borders on the 10th of July. That's the end of the school holiday. We need the borders open so that people in New South Wales, Victoria, ACT, WA, etc. can all come here and bring their kids for their school holiday. That's when our busiest tourist season is. We've been talking to Scott Morrison, we've been talking to his local member, Warren Ench, and we've been saying we are going to hurt for a lot longer. At the end of September, that's when our quiet season starts. So we're asking and pleading that the JobKeeper gets pushed out by another 6 months for those businesses that are genuine and for those businesses that are needed. Otherwise, we're going to have our job seekers leap up and our unemployment get from about 4.5, which it was in January, up to about 15 to 18%. Those are really alarming figures, and we're really concerned about Far North Queensland. So we are going to be hurting for a lot longer.
More than 8 million people have now been infected by COVID-19 around the world, according to Johns Hopkins University. Although cases have been declining in some parts of the world, like Australia and Europe, there's been a rapid increase in other regions, especially in Latin America.
Globally, more than 7.8 million cases of COVID-19 have now been reported to WHO, and more than 430 deaths. It took more than 2 months for the first 100,000 cases to be reported. For the past 2 weeks, more than 100,000 new cases have been reported almost every single day. Almost 75% of recent cases come from 10 countries, mostly in the Americas and South Asia. However, we also see increasing numbers of cases in Africa, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East. Even in countries that have demonstrated the ability to suppress transmission, countries must stay alert to the possibility of resurgence. Last week, China reported a new cluster of cases in Beijing after more than 50 days without a case in that city. More than 100 cases have now been confirmed.